The world we see is not the world that is. Every headline, every law, every movement of money feels separate, random, disconnected. Yet somewhere in the background, invisible hands are arranging the pieces. Civilization is a vast chessboard. The kings and queens wear modern crowns made of corporations, governments, and algorithms. The pawns are ordinary people, moving forward one square at a time, never realizing they are being guided by rules they didn't write. From birth, we are taught to play the game. Go to school, follow the rules, chase comfort, fear failure. But few ever question who designed those rules, and why they never seem to change. Empires rise and fall, currencies shift, leaders come and go, but the structure of control remains untouched. The board simply resets. Each new era begins with the illusion of freedom, then tightens its grip as fear returns. Power doesn't need to announce itself. It only needs to steer emotion. It whispers through media, markets, and crises. When people panic, they stop thinking. When they're divided, they stop uniting. Fear and distraction are the twin engines of control. They make you believe the danger is everywhere except where it truly lies, in the belief that you are powerless. Throughout history, every generation has faced a turning point. A war to fight, a system to rebuild, a crisis to overcome. Each time, people are told they are saving the world, while unseen players reposition their pieces and rewrite the rules. The game is elegant, efficient, and ruthless. Its beauty lies in invisibility, but games only last as long as the players remain unaware they are in one. And that awareness, the moment when a pawn stops marching blindly and starts asking why, is what every power fears most. Because once a person sees the board, the illusion begins to crack. Every sacrifice, every tragedy, every sudden solution begins to look less like coincidence and more like choreography. Still, the truth doesn't roar, it whispers. It slips through conversation, through the eyes of those who notice patterns others ignore. It's the quiet realization that the same hands that create chaos also offer the cure. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The moves become predictable, the motives familiar, the promises hollow. The world we inhabit today is the most advanced version of this ancient game. Digital, data-driven, globally connected information flows faster than ever, and so does manipulation. The board has gone online, but the objective hasn't changed. Control perception, control behavior, control reality. Yet something unexpected is happening. The pawns are learning to communicate without permission. They are comparing notes, seeing through illusions, recognizing that the board depends on their participation to exist at all. This story is about that awakening. The moment when humanity looks up from the board and realizes it's been part of a design older than memory. It's about how fear built empires, how crises forged obedience, and how the search for truth can shatter the entire structure. The game isn't over, but for the first time in centuries, the players are beginning to see each other. And that changes everything. Part 1. The Architects of Fear. Fear is the oldest form of currency. It buys obedience, shapes behavior, and silences thought. In every era, fear has been used not just to control people, but to guide them, to point their attention where the architects of power want it to go. When you control what people fear, you control what they do, what they demand, and even what they believe. Throughout history, fear has been the invisible architect of every major transformation. When kings needed armies, they told their people an enemy was at the gates. When banks needed bailouts, they warned of collapse. When empires needed obedience, they spoke of safety and survival. The faces and symbols change, but the formula remains eternal. Create panic, offer protection, tighten control. It starts with a spark, a shocking event, an image, a sound that cuts deep into the collective mind. The people freeze, their hearts race, and suddenly they're no longer citizens. They're hostages of emotion. The architects of fear understand this reaction like scientists. They know fear shuts down logic, accelerates conformity, and opens the door for temporary solutions that somehow never go away. Every age has its architects, not villains in cloaks, but analysts, executives, policymakers, ordinary people working within systems designed to amplify fear for profit or power. A crisis becomes a campaign, a narrative becomes a business model, and the population becomes a manageable equation. Fear turns leaders into saviors. The same hands that design the problem also design the solution. A new law, a new system, a new war, each presented as the only way forward. The people, exhausted and anxious, comply. They believe they're regaining control, but each step brings them deeper into dependency. The most dangerous fears are not the ones we see, they're the ones we imagine. The ones repeated through glowing screens until they become self-sustaining. Entire industries now thrive on fear. News networks, political machines, surveillance companies, all feeding off a single emotion that never runs out. Because fear sells, fear distracts. Fear unites people under authority and divides them from each other. And while the world argues over which threat is real, the architects quietly move their next pieces. It doesn't matter what the people fear, only that they fear. The reaction is the same: obedience, distraction, paralysis. The architects don't need to win every battle, they just need the people too afraid to fight back. But something has started to shift. The repetition has become too obvious. People are beginning to notice the pattern. The same talking points after every crisis. The same solutions waiting before the problems appear. The same voices claiming to protect them while benefiting from their panic. The fear machine is losing its magic, and that terrifies its creators. Because fear only works in darkness. Once the people see how it's built, how every emotion is tracked, measured, and manipulated, it loses its grip. Awareness disarms the architects faster than any revolution. Still, they adapt, they evolve. When old fears fade, new ones emerge. The architects know that fear doesn't die, it changes shape. It can shift from terrorism to viruses, from markets to climate, from war to technology. Whatever keeps the world anxious becomes the new foundation for control. But cracks are forming in their structure. The internet has given birth to something they didn't expect: connection without permission. The same networks used to spread fear are now used to expose it. The people are seeing how the architects operate: pattern, panic, policy, profit. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. The architects of fear built their empire on one assumption: that humanity would never wake up. That people would stay busy, scared, and divided forever. But history is changing. Information moves faster than fear now. Truth travels at the speed of light. And light always exposes the architects hiding in the shadows. For the first time in centuries, the people are beginning to understand the game. They are no longer reacting to fear, they are studying it, watching how it's used, learning to recognize its fingerprints in every broadcast, every crisis, every sudden emergency. And that awareness is the architect's greatest fear of all. Part 2: The Crisis Machine. Every empire learns the same lesson. Fear alone is not enough. Fear sparks panic, but panic burns out. To keep control alive, fear must be recycled, fed through events that look spontaneous but function like gears in a grand machine. That is how the world runs, through crisis. The crisis machine is elegant. It needs only 3 ingredients: chaos, narrative, and solution. First comes chaos, an event so disruptive that normal life freezes. Then the narrative, stories that shape what the public believes happened and who should be blamed. Finally, the solution, new systems, policies, and controls offered as salvation. The architects of power don't have to start the fires. They only need to know which sparks to fan, which headlines to amplify, which fears to name. In ancient times, empires staged spectacles to unite people under banners of safety. In modern times, it happens with press conferences, data dashboards, and digital alerts. A crisis can now travel across the planet in seconds, infecting minds before truth has time to breathe. The faster the fear spreads, the faster control expands. Each crisis has a purpose. A war shifts borders and resources. A financial crash justifies new economic systems. A technological failure invites surveillance for security. The details change, but the rhythm stays identical. Shock, fear, obedience, forgetfulness. By the time the world catches its breath, a new rulebook is already in place. The genius of the crisis machine is that it doesn't need to invent every disaster. It only needs to seize them. Natural tragedies, accidents, and social unrest become raw material. Every unpredictable event is an opportunity to strengthen predictability at the top. In the aftermath, governments and corporations write new laws in the name of prevention. Citizens cheer for measures that would have horrified them the week before. The board resets and the game continues. There is profit in panic. Markets crash downward so wealth can be transferred upward. Nations borrow to rebuild, binding future generations in debt. Companies patent the cure before announcing the problem. Media networks sell both the terror and the comfort. It is a perfect ecosystem, self-sustaining, self-justifying, invisible to those who live inside it. Yet patterns expose themselves to eyes that learn to look. The same language echoes across decades. Unprecedented, emergency powers, for your protection. The same institutions rise stronger after every breakdown. The same few grow richer no matter who suffers. History reads less like a sequence of random disasters and more like a manual for control. Still, cracks appear. The people are beginning to ask why the temporary measures never end, why the crises always seem to expand authority, but never restore freedom, why every catastrophe feels both unexpected and strangely convenient. Questions are the sand in the gears of the machine, and sand is starting to pour in. Information technology was meant to accelerate control, yet it also accelerates awareness. Citizens connect across borders, compare stories, discover the same manipulations wearing different masks. They realize the crisis machine feeds on participation. It requires belief. Without fear, its engines stall. The system adapts, shifting from overt terror to subtle anxiety, economic uncertainty, social outrage, digital dread. Constant tension replaces single catastrophes. If everything feels unstable, control becomes addictive. People accept monitoring, censorship, and loss of privacy because they confuse surveillance with safety. But safety without freedom is the quietest form of imprisonment. The moment humanity understands that crisis has become industry, that catastrophe is currency, the spell weakens. Every pattern revealed removes one gear from the machine. Awareness spreads like light through cracks in metal. The operators scramble to tighten the bolts, but it's too late. The design is visible now. The crisis machine can manipulate events, but it cannot survive truth. Once the people see how it runs, they can choose to step away from the board entirely. And that, more than rebellion, is what ends the game. Part 3. The hidden economy of power. Behind every government, every crisis, and every televised promise lies the true language of control. Money. Not the cash we touch, but the invisible kind. Credit, debt, derivatives, and digits on screens that dictate what we can and cannot do. The architects of power have always known that fear alone can't last forever. To make control permanent, it must be profitable. That's where the hidden economy begins. It operates quietly, beyond elections and beyond borders. While nations argue and citizens protest, the real decisions happen in boardrooms and closed meetings where currency, policy, and law intertwine. These are not conspiracies. They are strategies of survival for those who live above consequence. They create crises not for chaos, but for consolidation. When the world panics, they buy it back at a discount. When systems fail, they offer loans. And with every loan comes a leash. Debt is the most efficient form of control ever invented. You don't need to imprison people who owe you their future. You just need to convince them that repayment is freedom. From governments to families, entire populations are bound by numbers they'll never see. Interest rates, bonds, and balance sheets that decide who thrives and who struggles. And the cruel beauty of this design is that most people participate willingly. They chase the illusion of security while feeding the very machine that drains it away. Every major event, every war, every bailout, every stimulus ends the same way. Wealth moves upward, and control moves inward. The architects call it stability, but stability for them means dependence for everyone else. Central banks print rescue packages that dilute value. Corporations merge under the banner of efficiency. And citizens celebrate because they think things are improving. They don't realize the future has just been sold, quietly, legally, permanently. This hidden economy doesn't need borders or flags. It thrives in algorithms, stock indexes, and offshore accounts. It feeds on both sides of every conflict. While one nation mourns and another celebrates, the same institutions fund both. Profit doesn't take sides, it only seeks return. In the grand chessboard of humanity, money is the queen. It moves anywhere, anytime, in any direction. The architects of this system don't see themselves as villains. They see themselves as guardians of order. They believe the world needs hierarchy to function, that people can't handle true freedom, that chaos must be managed through debt. And maybe in their logic, they're right, for now. But like all games built on illusion, this one has an expiration date. The system's weakness is the very transparency of the modern age. Every transaction leaves a trace. Every secret eventually surfaces, and every lie collapses under the weight of truth. As technology exposes the hidden economy, people are beginning to notice something extraordinary. Wealth is not vanishing, it's redirected. For every crisis that devastates millions, a handful of accounts grow stronger. For every promise of relief, there's a shadow clause of control. The global economy is less a marketplace and more a mechanism, one designed to transfer autonomy from the many to the few. But now the same digital tools used for control, the ledgers, the data, the algorithms, are being turned outward. Decentralization, blockchain, transparency. These are not just buzzwords, they are the first cracks in centuries of invisible architecture. For the first time, the pawns can see the numbers behind the moves. They can trace the flow of value and realize that money has no morality. It only follows the hand that directs it. The architects fear this awakening more than any revolution, because revolutions can be crushed, but awareness cannot. Once people understand that their labor, their taxes, and their time have been fueling a hidden engine of dependency, the illusion breaks. The board is revealed for what it is, a system of trust built on manipulation. And trust, once shattered, cannot be bought back with currency. The hidden economy of power is unraveling, slowly, silently, but certainly. And as the old systems decay, something new stirs beneath them. A world where value flows not through banks, but through people. Where truth, not fear, becomes the new standard of wealth. The question is no longer who controls the money, but what happens when the money no longer controls us. Part 4. The Awakening. Every system of control depends on one illusion, that the people beneath it will never wake up. For centuries, that illusion held firm. The powerful wrote history, controlled the narrative, and erased those who questioned the story. But something unexpected has happened in this era. The script is slipping. The players on the board are beginning to look up, and the architects are starting to panic. The awakening didn't arrive with fire or revolution. It came quietly, through screens, through whispers, through the collective realization that everything was connected. The same names behind every corporation, the same networks funding every political party, the same voices shaping every message we see. Patterns once invisible have become undeniable, and once you notice a pattern, you start to wonder what else has been hidden in plain sight. The internet, designed as the ultimate tool of surveillance, turned into a mirror. People used it to see each other, to share truths once buried by gatekeepers. For the first time in modern history, knowledge was not a privilege. It was contagious. A meme could awaken millions faster than a speech ever could. A leaked document could unravel decades of lies, and a single voice could pierce through walls of censorship built by nations and corporations alike. At first, the architects laughed it off. They called it misinformation, a glitch, a temporary storm in their perfect sky. But storms don't vanish, they grow. The more they tried to censor, the louder truth echoed. The more they suppressed, the stronger awareness became. The awakening spread not as rebellion, but as recognition. A realization that the system we were taught to trust was never designed to serve us. Fear, once their most reliable weapon, started to lose its power. People stopped reacting to panic the way they used to. They began to question every breaking headline, every crisis conveniently timed to distract from another law, another bailout, another hidden hand. Awareness turned anxiety into analysis, and suddenly, manipulation wasn't working the same way. The pawns had learned to see the board. And yet the awakening wasn't just intellectual, it was emotional. People began to feel the emptiness behind the endless cycle of consumption and chaos. They realized that the constant noise wasn't life, it was control. That true freedom wasn't in choosing sides, but in stepping outside the game entirely. They began to reconnect with each other, with purpose, with truth. The architects responded the only way they knew how, with division. New ideologies, new distractions, new digital echo chambers built to turn awareness into anger. If people couldn't be kept asleep, they could at least be kept fighting. But even that is starting to fail, because awareness breeds empathy, and empathy breaks the machine. When you stop hating the other side and start seeing the structure that created both sides, the illusion collapses. The awakening is not about one event or one generation. It's a shift in consciousness, a quiet rebellion of perception. It's realizing that your thoughts are currency, your attention is energy, and your belief is power. The moment you reclaim them, the architects lose control. Old systems crumble not when they are attacked, but when they are ignored. Every person who withdraws their belief from a lie weakens it. Every mind that chooses awareness over fear rewires the network of control. The architects are discovering that their greatest enemy isn't revolution, it's evolution. An evolution of thought, of trust, of what it means to be human in a world built on deception. Now people are beginning to look beyond money and politics to something deeper, truth. Not the version sold in headlines, but the one that rises naturally when deception no longer works. It is truth that turns pawns into players. It is truth that transforms the board itself. And it is truth, pure, undiluted, collective. that the architects can neither buy nor destroy. This awakening cannot be undone. It doesn't belong to any country, religion, or movement. It belongs to every individual who decides to stop reacting and start seeing. And once enough people see, the game itself begins to fall apart. The world is no longer asleep. The pieces are stirring. The architects are trembling. And the next move belongs to us. Black Pawn Part 5 on Breaking the Board. The board was never meant to be questioned. For centuries, it stood as the silent stage of power. Kings and merchants, banks and governments each taking their turns, while the people played their assigned roles. But now the pattern has been exposed. The pawns have seen the board, and when the pieces awaken, the game can no longer continue as before. Breaking the board doesn't mean chaos, it means clarity. It means understanding that control only exists when we consent to it. Every law, every system, every illusion of division depends on belief. And belief is fragile once truth appears. You cannot unsee manipulation once you've recognized its rhythm. You cannot fear authority once you've realized it feeds on your obedience. The architects of control built their world on predictability. They relied on cycles. Fear, crisis, compliance, repeat. But awareness disrupts those cycles like static in a transmission. Every moment a person chooses truth over fear, the algorithm fails. Every time a community unites instead of divides, the strategy collapses. The system was designed to manage minds, not awaken them. And now the greatest variable, human consciousness-wise, has gone off script. The digital age, meant to be the perfect surveillance tool, has become the stage of collective awakening. People are connecting dots faster than institutions can hide them. Narratives unravel in real time. History is being rewritten not by governments or publishers, but by individuals comparing evidence, sharing knowledge, and demanding authenticity. The gatekeepers are losing control of the gates. As the people rise in awareness, a strange thing happens. The architects begin to turn on each other. The illusion of unity among the powerful fractures under pressure. The same systems they built to dominate the world become weapons against one another. The board shakes from the inside. Corporations battle governments for influence. Algorithms expose their creators. Truth leaks from the very networks designed to contain it. And through that chaos, something new begins to emerge. Cooperation without command, order without ownership. People start organizing without leaders, building without permission, creating value outside the old money system. Communities become economies and trust replaces authority. The game's rules are dissolving, replaced by an understanding that power is not taken. It's withdrawn. The architects cannot control what they no longer feed. Breaking the board is not a violent act. It's the quiet refusal to participate in deceit. It's choosing self-awareness over distraction, knowledge over narrative, truth over comfort. Every human who stops reacting to fear becomes a piece the architects can no longer move. Every awakening mind weakens the illusion a little more. And one day, when enough people stop believing in the game, the board will collapse under its own emptiness. They called it the system. We called it the world. But what if it was only ever a mirror, reflecting our ignorance, our compliance, our surrender? Now that the mirror is cracking, we begin to see what's been hidden behind it all along. Potential. The infinite potential of people who remember who they are and what they can create together. The true power was never held by kings or banks or nations. It has always belonged to awareness, to the billions of individual minds capable of seeing beyond illusion. That power is awakening now, and there's no mechanism, no machine, no crisis that can stop it. The board is breaking, the pieces are rising. And for the first time in history, the game of control is facing its end. Not through destruction, but through understanding. Because the moment the players see the board, the illusion dies. And when the illusion dies, the truth begins. The architects will call it disorder. They'll say the world is collapsing, but it's not collapsing, it's correction. The balance returning to its rightful place. Humanity reclaiming what it unknowingly gave away. The awakening is not coming, it's here. And the next move, the one that decides everything, no longer belongs to them, it belongs to us. The pawn that became a player. For generations, the people were told the world was too complex to change. That power belonged only to the few who understood it. But that lie has shattered. The pawns have learned to think, to question, to connect. And in doing so, they've become something new. A pawn that sees the board is no longer a pawn. It becomes the most powerful piece in the game. Not because it destroys the kings, but because it no longer plays by their rules. The awakening isn't about taking power back. It's about realizing it was never truly lost. The real revolution happens within, one mind at a time, until billions remember that authority only exists through permission. The game is ending, a new one is beginning, and this time there are no pawns and only players. Subscribe to LTL Productions for more stories that reveal the hidden systems shaping money, control, and consciousness. See beyond the illusion. See the board, because the next move is yours.